here's the third part of this. So we've done our main stage. We've got our 3 cards set up, right? And now we're going to do a third section here, and we're going to do We're going to do cards that have side-by-side content, right? So we're going to come down here. We're going to, like we've done with everything else, we're going to create our Flexbox section. We want this to go vertical to start. Okay. This container is going to be, we'll call it 2 cards. Sorry. We'll call it 2 cards. In here now, what we're going to do is we want to have our title, right? So we're going to have a heading in here. I want to do, and but the title here is going to be centered. So we're going to have a centered title. We'll have a background color, right? And then we'll have our cards that have the side-by-side content, okay? So we are going to set it up as this. So the 2 cards is set up, so it's now column vertical, right? So everything's good that way. We are also going to center align any items that we put in here. So that'll automatically place our title across the center. We are going to now go in and we are going to add our title, right? Our heading. So we're going to put that in there. So inside of the 2 cards, we have a heading now. And you can see that it is centered inside of that. Okay. And now we want to start building our other cards, right? So we're going to have 2 cards. So I showed you before how we would start off in the 3 card setting where we just created our first card and kind of went off of everything from there. I'm going to show you a different way of doing that here. So in our 2 cards now, we need to create a container that's going to house our cards, right? Just like we did for up here. Now we're just doing it ahead of time because we already know that that's going to be that way. So with that selected, I'm going to go up to my add element. I'm going to add a container. Cool. So that container is going to be our card container. Okay. Inside of that card container now, we need 2 more containers because we have 2 cards. Okay. So we're going to, with this selected, we are going to go down here to where it has the plus, right? Because we want these containers to be inside of this. So we're going to hit plus, and I'm going to hit the container. And now that container is inside of my card container, okay? And then I can duplicate this. So we have 2 cards that are kind of taking up space, right? But as you notice, those 2 cards, those 2 containers rather, that are taking up space are stacked on top of each other, right? That is because we haven't set the direction of this overall container yet. So with card container selected, I'm going to come over to my edit container panel. I'm going to choose my row horizontal, and now look, they've shifted to side by side. Cool. And then from there now, we can actually start building out these cards. So this one here, I'm literally just leaving this here for spacing purposes. Okay, so we know that in this horizontal configuration, right, we are going to have 2 cards. So they're going to be about a 50-50 split, right, with our 20 pixels gap in between. So this is the only card that I'm really worried about right now, okay? So I'm going to select that container. I'm going to change the name to card 1, all right? Now in here, I know that I need a image, right? And I need content, okay? So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create an image container and a content container, right? This is where it gets a little confusing. So here's my card. Inside of this card, because I want things to be set up side by side, I need an image container and a content container. So with card 1 selected, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to hit the plus. and I'm going to add a container. Okay, so now you can see that this container is inside of card 1. I'm going to name this image. I'm going to Command D, duplicate that. All right, I'm going to name this content. Okay, and now again, we have this set up vertically. So I've got to select card 1. I've got to make sure my layout tab is selected. I've got to come down to direction, and I have to make it so that this is row horizontal, so that all the content in here displays side by side. Okay, so I don't want this to be a 50-50 split though, right? I want it to be a 25-75, right? So what I can do is my image container, I can come over here, right? And where it says width, there's already a percentage selected because we've got it kind of split. I can bring this and I can make this 25, right? Maybe we'll make it more like 40. Yeah, we'll do 40. All right, so now we've got a 40, right, and a 60 split because everything's got to add up to 100. So inside of card 1, I've got a horizontal layout. I've got 20 pixels of distance between, or 20 pixel of gap between my left and my right. This is for an image, and this is for text, right? So I can select my image container, and now I can add an element into that, and I can add an image, right? And that image we'll choose something over here. Let's choose, we'll just do this iPhone real quick. We'll use that, right? So we've got this iPhone image, okay? That's my left-hand side. We're good with sizing. It's going to fit the inside of the container. It's going to span the container size because we have everything set up already. So everything's good there, right? So we've got this. Now we want to add content. So with my content selected, right, I can either hit the plus inside of that or I can hit it up here. I'm going to add a heading, right? And then I want some body copy as well, right? And then you can add whatever else you want in here also. Yeah, and then I will just style this accordingly. So I can go in here, I can grab my heading, I can make it an H4, right? So it's nice and small. But now I need to style this up a little bit as well, right? So with this content container selected, I want all of this to be kind of centered up vertically, right? So that it grows and shrinks with everything. So I can do that, right? By going into my layout, going down to justify content and making sure it's centered. I want this to always be stacked. So I also want to make sure that I set my direction to column vertical, right? And so now I have this side by side that I can work off of. And maybe now that I see what image I'm working with and I realize, okay, like that's okay, I can deal with that. Like that's a good size. I can go back over here and I can select my image container. And now maybe I make it 30 instead of 40, right? So now we've got a little bit more space there. We know what's going on, right? So now we've got the layout. The layout is proper. If you look over here in my structure panel, so I've got my card container, right? So my first thing that I have is my 2 cards, right? So that's the overall section that this is in, right? You can name it 2 card section, right? If it helps you with naming it from like a hierarchy like standpoint. So we could make this the main stage. This could be the 3 card section. This could be the 2 card section, just so we know, right? So I'll name this 3 cards section. And now inside of that section, I have my heading, right? And it's centered because everything is set up this way properly. And then I have a container that is going to hold my cards. Okay, so this is the overall container. Inside of that container, I've got 2 cards that I'm putting up, right? I'll have card 1, and then I will, once I get done kind of styling this and making it the way I want it to, I'll have card 2, right? But for now, we've got card 1. Inside of that card 1 container, I've made 2 more containers, right? One container holds the image and the other one holds the content. And the reason I do this is because when this card shrinks, right, this and this need to stack underneath each other. So all of this content, once this whole section shrinks down, all of this content here is going to drop down underneath this phone, right? And so that's what we want to do. This is also going to drop down underneath that other section, right? So, or you can have it so that all this displays this way, and then you just have 2 of these kind of stacked on top of each other. And you can set that in your permissions and your media queries, which we'll go over on Tuesday on how to make this all mobile. But for now, we've got side-by-side content. I can put whatever other content I want in here. I can put a different image in here if I want. I can duplicate this so that it'll look fine over here. And then if I want to now, right, now that I've got card 1 selected, I can add some padding to this card. And I can also add a stroke, and like I did up here, right? So let's just say I want to add 20 pixels of padding all the way around, okay? Then I can go to Style. I can choose a border. I want my border to be solid. I want my border width to be 2. I'm going to choose a border color, so it doesn't really matter. I'm actually going to make this darker because we're going to put a background color. Actually, we'll make it white because I'm going to put a darker background color in there. And then I'll choose a border radius. I'll do 10 for this one. We'll do 20 so you can make sure you see it. So we'll do a 20 pixel border radius as well. So we've got a white border. You're not going to see it yet because obviously it's on a white background. We've got a 2 pixel border width, and we've got a 20 pixel border radius. And that is around all of this. And now we've got 20 pixels of padding all the way around. So this is all going to be spaced appropriately, right? If you wanted to set this to a specific height, you could also do that, right? So we could do a minimum height on this. So we could make these all, let's say 275. Yeah. So if you notice inside of here, my content container has grown, right? And now it's centered, but my image is still not. So that means we have to select the image container and we have to work on how things are positioned in here, right? So we want to justify center. So now the image stays center as well. Yeah. And now we can make this a little bit bigger because we want it to be, appropriately sized. So now we can make it 50% width, right? And work on how we have everything in here. So now we have this card, right? So everything is appropriately spaced here for this card. We'll close that up, and you can see all of that content is in there, right? So I turn it off, it goes away. Content there. So from here, what we do is we can delete this container because we don't need this anymore. And we can take card 1 and we can Command D, duplicate it, and now we have 2 different cards. All right? So now the cards are set up. We've got our heading text in there. The structure is perfectly fine because we've got our card container. Now we just need to style this section, right? We need to make this work. So we want some spacing here also. So we're going to go into our advanced, right? We're going to deselect our link values together because we just want to do the top and bottom. So I'm going to do 100 up top and 100 on the bottom. Okay. Oh, wait, sorry. My fault. We need that to be reversed. I was using margin. I thought I was in padding. That's my fault. Zero margin, zero margin. We want that to be padding. I apologize. Let's backtrack. All right. So in padding, instead, right, we want that to be 100 and the bottom to be 100 as well. Not 1,000, 100. So apologies there, right? So now we have 100 pixels of space here. If we did margin with this background color being in here, we would have actually added 100 more pixels of white space between here. So that's my fault. I apologize. So we are doing padding because now it's giving us 100 pixels of spacing inside of this container. And that's going to matter when we do this. When we come over to background type, we choose classic, right? And we want to choose a color. So now we can choose whatever color we want to go in here, right? And now we have a background color. So we've got this background color set, but now we've got an issue, right? These cards, which were initially white on a white background, now they have a transparent background. So how do we change that? Well, simple. We select the card, right? So we've got card 1. I'm going to rename this to card 2. So I'm going to select card 1, and in my style, I'm going to click that. I'm going to go to my background type and hit classic. I'm going to go to color, and I'm just going to add a white background. Now we have our white box again. And because it's white, we did put a border type in there, but we made it a border of white. We can actually change that up too. So we can make this any color we want for the border. All right, we'll pick that. And then we can do the same with card 2, right? There we go. Right, so we make those adjustments so we can see the color. We got the border in there, right? And now we can do the same thing with card 2, or we can do what we did before, which is now that we've got all these settings set up and now everything works fine, we can delete card 2 and then Command D card 1 again. And now all the styling is appropriate and it's where we need it to be. And we've got card 2. And then the only thing we really need to change now is heading, right? So we can select our heading. We can go in here to style. We can change our text color to white. And we want some spacing between these blocks and this text. So we can do that one of two ways. We can actually add margin to the bottom of this, right, to the bottom of the text, or we can actually add some margin to the top of our card container, right? So we can we'll add it to the text because most of the time what you're going to do is when you set up your H1 through H6s and you're actually defining those styles, you're going to add margin and padding to those styles ahead of time. So anytime you pull a heading in, it's going to automatically give you the proper spacing based off of your design. So for this, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We're going to unclick the link values together so we can adjust them individually. And then we are just going to add 25 pixels of spacing to the bottom of this. All right. So now let's just say that we want to add, a button or even an image underneath this. We can do that easily now, actually in a much easier way than we did up here, because now we've got this basic structure taken care of. This container is self-contained now at this point. It's already kind of taken care of. So now anything we put in here is just going to stack. So let's just say I want to add a button to the two card section, right? I can do that by coming over into my structure panel, clicking the 2 card section, right? Adding an element, slapping a button in there, and then it's just a matter of styling my button appropriately so that it's the right color, it's the right spacing, and all that kind of stuff. What we can also do right, is let's say I like this button that I've created up here in the main stage area. Yeah. And I want this button to come down here and be in this section. I can do that, right? Using my structure panel, I already kind of know where everything's laid out, right? So if I have this button up here in my main stage, I don't even have to see it. I just know that that's my button, right? I can select it. I can Command D duplicate it, right? And I can take that from the main stage area and I can drag it down underneath this button that I've created into my two cards section. And now here's that button, right? The hover state is already set up. It's already good to go. The main color is already set up. The styling, whatever you kind of created up there is there. And then the button that's above it, I'll just delete it. We'll get rid of it, right? So you can actually move certain things around and certain sections around, just based off of duplicating and moving them in the structure panel. So using the layers in the structure panel appropriately and making sure that you know where things are and things are named properly and organized properly actually really helps with your workflow later on, right? Because you can use elements over and over and over again. Now there are ways to do that in Elementor where you can create like globals and templates and things like that. So you can just pull those templates in as you're using them. But the easy, like kind of the quick and dirty way of doing it as you're kind of making a page is this. You can kind of duplicate things as you go down through. So that's our third section. So I think with what we've learned here, right, between our main stage, our 3 card section, and kind of how we lay these ones out as well into the double, and this section out, you should be able to work through your design for Tuesday. On Tuesday, then we'll take a look at the designs. We'll make sure everybody's good to go as far as structure, make sure there weren't any issues or whatever. And then from there, I will start teaching you how we can actually start to design, style this mobilely, right? So if you notice up here, and you can start to play with this on your own if you like, but if you notice up top here, right, we've got these kind of screen resolution settings. So we've got like widescreen, our desktop, which is kind of the default mode, laptop, tablet landscape, tablet portrait, and mobile landscape and mobile portrait. If you click on any of these, right, so let's just click mobile portrait real quick. If I click mobile portrait, I will see what my design looks like from a mobile standpoint currently, right? Which really right now, not great. You know what I mean? It's not ideal, but with some small tweaks here and there, we can actually make this. We can fix this really easily. But if you notice, right, the sections that we created, so our 3 card section now, right, we have our 3 cards title, and then we have our cards, and they're all nice and stacked. Yeah. We have our other section here with our 2 cards, but if you notice now, as they've moved, they've now stacked. So where this phone is up top, and then all of our other text and stuff like that has slid underneath. Right? It's still centered in the container. Everything's still good, but it's moved appropriately now because we've set it up appropriately. And then landscape, right? It goes back to kind of a version of that. You'll see what it looks like. Tablet landscape, right? Laptop, and then we go back to desktop, and then there's just super widescreen. So, all right. So those are your 3 lessons. Those are the 3 walkthroughs. Tuesday, please work through, download and work through that design that is posted in Canvas. I want that completed on Tuesday so that we can immediately start jumping into working on mobile optimization and setting everything up so that you can learn how like mobile works, and then we can even get into how to start like animating some things. By all means, if you work ahead and you're in a comfortable spot and you feel good with this, play around with some settings, play around with some stuff as far as learning a little bit more, maybe bring in some different elements, things like that. But for now, this is the basic structure stuff, and this should be sufficient to get you at least to where you need to be on Tuesday. All right. Everybody have a great weekend, and I will see you Tuesday. All right. Thank you.